Hey guys, so now that we know X Factors and zone abilities are here to stay in NHL, but they introduced so many, and most of them are just confusing and there's real no concrete evidence for what they actually do, I thought I would put together a tier list for everyone to go over which zone abilities are the best, which ones aren't bad, which ones should just be avoided, and which ones I hope they just remove from the game because there's no point in them being there. And I thought I would get a little help with putting this tier list together. So, why not go out and get the best player in North America in NHL 22, my man Regs.
They're gonna play it out, and your 2022 NHL GWC North American Club Champion is Regs!
One more thing I want to talk about right before we get into the video. One, if you enjoy a certain X Factor and zone ability, use it. Don't take this as gospel. There are some people that will just find better abilities more useful for them, determined by their playstyle. Some of it might just be placebo, but nonetheless, this is just merely a guide. And second, my man Regs wanted to call every ability a synergy, so you don't need to comment on that. I don't know why, but he must have said it like 15 times. All right, let's get into the video. All right, so I thought, I'd get a special guest with me, the best player in arguably the world, #1 in North America, at least as it stands. My man Regs, hello, how you doing this afternoon?
Good, happy to be here.
You're not happy to be here, it's July. But nonetheless, the viewers thank you, as we are, we're gonna do a tier list of X Factors, as I think there was just too many. I don't know if you feel the same, but I feel like there was just too many. A lot of them did nothing, and they were just there. But let me know your thoughts on X Factors as a whole this first year.
Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of X Factors. I think there's too many underlying inconsistencies with them. However, I think the potential for them to be a great addition into the game if used correctly is a big thing. So.
Nope, fair enough. All right, so we are going to go through all of them. Shout out to my man Maze Jolt for making this awesome tier list. He's got them all down here, as you see on the video. We're not going to touch on the goalie ones, but we'll go through all of the player ones. And quickly, we'll touch on some of them. And we'll start with Wheels. I will put where I think Wheels is, and I'm curious, and then you'll go. All right, see how far off I am. I am going to put Wheels in the S tier. Ugh, we're off to a great start. Literally grabbed Adventurer, the ability for goaltenders, but it's just Wheels. I think it is one of the best abilities that you can have in the game. It removes the speed debuff you get when carrying the puck, and I think that it gives you a real advantage when you have a really fast player that has Wheels. What are your thoughts?
Okay, I too am going to put Wheels in S tier. It's one of the few abilities that is constantly activated regardless of your player's endurance left remaining on the ice, and it definitely gives you that extra edge when just skating anywhere on the ice. So
you think it's S tier? Even at 10 points, it's still the best. Like, let me ask you this, would you use it on anyone that isn't on your first line at the ability point cost that it's at right now?
Top 2 lines, okay. I'd use it, yes.
What about on defensemen?
I would prefer lead edges on the defenseman.
Oh, we're gonna talk about that because I think that might be kind of a hot take for some of the player base. All right, so let's move on to our next one here, and that is All Alone. Get it out. Absolutely pointless. I don't know how, you know what I mean? Like, I just, when are you on a clear breakaway, and there is no clear indicator of what it even does. So I'm gonna put it in the get it out tier.
Yeah, I don't know what determines a breakaway. However, I do think there are even more that are worse than it. So I'm going to go F tier.
Okay, so you're gonna put it F tier. I'm gonna say just get it out. I think it's pointless. Okay, all right. So we're off and running so far. All right, I'm dialed in with the #1 player. All right, next up is Ankle Breaker. I think that it has potential if maybe it was described as what it does a little bit more, but I'm gonna put it in the F tier. I think for the cost, it really doesn't benefit anything I've seen. I haven't seen any huge advantage when you're at top speed making those dekes, but maybe I'm different than you.
This is the first one where we are going to be completely different.
Okay.
I'm going to put Ankle Breaker in A tier.
Explain why. I need to know why, because this is one of these ones that like I don't see, and for the most part the player base doesn't see what it actually does. So give me what it actually does.
Ankle Breaker allows you to be more agile on the puck. It allows you to handle bumps better. You're able to bounce off bumps better. And you get a speed boost out of it whenever it activates.
Really?
So, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know the speed burst part. Okay, all right.
I'm gonna go A tier on ankle breaker. I think it was one of the more lethal ones and made players like McKinnon that much better.
Unbelievable. Okay. All right. I love to hear it. Again, I'd much rather have your opinion on this one than mine. Okay, back at you. I will put this in the F tier. I think it's fun. I'm gonna put it in the D tier because I think it's fun, but activating it is like not consistent, and I don't see the huge benefit of it if you can't activate it consistently.
From a competitive standpoint, it does absolutely nothing. However, like you said, it is fun to use.
Yeah.
So I'll go D tier with you.
Okay, perfect. All right, this is another one that I've been kind of low on throughout the year. Because of the ability for the wraps. This year, it was like the old, like, go up behind the net and you just skate it in front of the goaltender and throw it up top was, like, super prevalent this year. Backhand beauty, I was just never big on because I didn't see a huge advantage because if someone doesn't have backhand beauty, it's still going to go in that sense. I'm going to put it, though, my man Uninstall during the GWC found something with that Crosby with backhand beauty that made me try a few things in practice mode. I'm actually gonna put this in the I want to say B tier I don't know. You'll be the tiebreaker. Where do you think that backhand beauty should go?
I wish it was on more players because it
Yes.
felt like only Crosby had like gold backhand beauty.
Yeah.
However, I do think on breakaways coming around the net and even like in between the circles, it was actually lethal. So because of that, I'm gonna go B tier.
Okay, that was where I was noticing a lot. I was messing around in practice mode quite a bit, and yeah, in the slot, like you can go way across the goaltender's body with backhand beauty, specifically on the Crosby, because you're right, there isn't a ton with goal backhand beauty. But all right, next up is Big Rig, and this is the one where you have to hold X to protect the puck. Now, I think this is going to be a different rating for the players that are in the 0.0001% of the player base and the rest of it, because to actually utilize this X factor, you need to hold X and actually know how to protect the puck, which might not be easily done for a lot of the player base. And if you're not elite at it, I feel like it's in the back at you tier just because you're not going to utilize it an awful lot. But where would you put it?
I'm gonna put it in B tier because I think the potential for it going into the next game, where if it could be utilized while not just holding X or A on the puck, it could be absolutely tremendous. And I did use it quite a bit, so I'll go B tier.
Okay, yeah, because you're saying that if you can get used to holding down X, and to be clear, this is when you get the animation where you're holding the puck with one hand and you drop your left hand. So if you can get good with that, if that animation, then you're in business.
You won't get off the puck.
Okay. I think the next one is definitely a different experience maybe for sixes than Hut, but Big Tipper. I tried this because I thought this would be absolutely lethal at the beginning of the game when we first got a list of X factors and kind of broken. I did not see Big Tipper prevalent at all, and the thing I noticed the most is if you run behind the net, if you work it back to the point, really, there isn't really that many people in front of the net to actually get a tip, but maybe this is different for you because you are like a master of getting the players to go where you want to go. I'm actually going to put Big Tipper in the D tier.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. For the amount, to me, it just isn't worth it to activate. For the amount of chances I get throwing a puck low from high.
Yeah.
You do notice the effect of it. You do get a couple more tips than you would generally, but not enough to spend your abilities on or classify it as anything C tier and above. So I'll go D tier.
Okay. I agree. All right, so I think that one has the potential to be like ruthless if they change around like tipping in the game, maybe, and if they made it like more of a manual thing, like if there was a button to actually tip the puck on net manually and Big Tipper was in the game, I think that it could have a lot more of an impact. But it's just very hard to get that player that has Big Tipper in the middle so that you can actually utilize that. That ability.
It's one of the X factors you actually don't manually control.
Yeah.
So
all right, next up among player X factors is Born Leader. This one I'm gonna give a 2-part too because Born Leader, I think as the year goes along, gets less and less useful because endurance goes from in the low 80s to 99. So I would actually say Born Leader at launch of the game until about middle of January is like an S tier ability. Curious on your
Yeah,
thoughts.
I agree with you. I used it. I made sure I had guys on my top two lines having it because my third and fourth line, you notice the difference between players. Now, come April, come May, when all my lines were absolutely sick, I got rid of Born Leader and went to other things like an Unstoppable Force and Ankle Breakers. So it's an S tier at the start of the game. Come the end of the game, it's about a B, C tier, but in versus, I think it's an S tier ability.
Okay. All right, next up, we've got Bouncer, which at the beginning of the year I felt was a little bit better of an ability. I remember the Ulf Samuelson Team Builder card had it, and it really helps with like net front battles. But as the year went along, I think No Contest kind of passed it. But I'm gonna put Bouncer in the C tier because I think that the cost is pretty low, and I think that if you have defensemen that have it on, if they tie up in front of the net, it takes longer for your opponent to actually be able to get to use that player, which has a pretty big advantage over some of these other abilities. Like it isn't one of those attribute ones. It's actually like an animation X factor. So I'll put it in the C tier.
I'll go D tier on that one solely because I don't think enough players again had it to really utilize it. Like I can't think of a single player come the end of the year that had Bouncer as a synergy. But no, it does serve a purpose. Winning those 50-50 pucks is such a big and important part of the game. So if you're able to get that half a second coming in off a tie-up in your own zone to allow you to break the puck out, then that's a big plus. So I'll go D tier.
Okay. All right. Next up is, in my opinion, it's Close Quarters. And in my opinion, it is an S tier ability. I think that it allows for really bad animation shots to have full power, and because it activates above the circles, like above the face-off dot, it's not just like within a foot or two of the net. I think at the beginning of the year it was so vague, but once we got to see what it actually does, I think as the year went along, it just became more and more valuable. But I'm curious to hear what your thoughts on it are.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with you. Close Quarters is an S tier. Some of the animations you get in tight are just absolutely ridiculous. Some go for you, some go against you, but no, what Close Quarter does, especially activating on the forehand, because I'd say 95% of the goals this year were off forehand shots.
Yeah.
Backhand was a little bit weaker than past years, so yeah, no, Close Quarters is an S tier.
All right. Glad we're in agreement there. All right. Next up is one, again, that wasn't super popular throughout the year, and it's going to be Crease Crasher. And this one activates whenever there is a rebound, and it helps out, it helps corralling and getting you a better shot off a rebound. Now, I feel like that is almost in the same aspect of Close Quarters. I didn't use it a lot throughout the year, and again, there wasn't a ton of players that had gold it. I will put it in the C tier because of you really have to, again, to get that player in position to actually use it on top of actually getting it to activate. It just makes it really tough, but let's hear your take on it.
Yeah, I'm gonna go C tier too. As we go on in the year, players get that 99 defensive awareness, 99 endurance, so it's tough to set up that perfect play. So sometimes you gotta resort to just throwing something off the pad and to elevate that percentage or scoring it off the pad from 50-50 to like a 60-40 to like sway that in your way. Is a big positive. So I'll go C tier if he's correct.
Okay. All right, next up, one of my favorites, Elite Edges. I'm going to put Elite Edges in the S tier. Where are you putting it?
I'm going to put Elite Edges in the S tier, and I would drop Born Leader to the A tier.
Okay. Let's put that one down.
I think Elite Edges I think it's the best synergy in the game.
Okay.
Just the ability to constantly be turning in and out of corners, just turning out of anywhere on the ice with the puck. Is extremely helpful, as well as being able to skate with team's best players. Having Elite Edges, it just makes your life so much easier, and it's another synergy that's used 100% of the game on your players. So
let me ask you this, because you said something like earlier on that Elite Edges on I've never put it on defensemen because I don't utilize. I feel like you don't utilize it a lot with your defensemen, but you said that on your defenseman it's like super important. Explain like why that.
I think the biggest thing Elite Edges helps me with is if my opponent's gaining speed through the neutral zone, it allows me to turn quicker, to not get burnt, which is a big thing, and also just
Interesting.
turning out my own corners. It makes breaking out the puck so much easier, and sometimes allows you to gain a step or two on your guy to actually then carry the puck, which is going to give you odd man numbers in transition.
So it activates without the puck.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that. Okay, I mean, that's why you're the GOAT. All right, that's a really good point. Okay. All right, next up, we've got Heat Seeker, which is improving wrist shots and snapshots from the points. It gives you exceptional power and accuracy. Again, I wasn't big on this year using wrist shots from the points unless you like walked it in, and I believe this activates below the face-off dot, so it's still within that range. But I just think that there was better defensive abilities that you could put on your defensemen, specifically one we'll talk about later involving their shot. I will put it in the C tier because I think if used correctly, it can be pretty effective, but I just think there's so many other abilities. And the one thing about this is that if you put it on a forward, you really have to groove how you use that forward because, you know, like, again, it's below the face-off dots. So, I mean, maybe on, like, a cut into the middle behind, but, like, most short-side wristers and things like that don't go in from that far out. But where would you have it?
Yeah, I think it's a C tier. I think it's a grade below another X Factor that we're gonna get into later. It does have effect because it, like, if I'm grading this off of 6v6, I think it would be like an A tier synergy because of how effective it is. But from a 1v1 standpoint, the goalie from that high is generally going to make that save, Heat Seeker or not. So yeah, no, C tier.
Okay. All right, next up is Ice Pack, which is exceptional shot blocking ability with additional range, greatly improves recovery from block shots, and reduce injury and stagger chance. I'm not going to lie, this is an F tier one because I really don't want my AI going down for a block shot. Again, I just, it is only 2 points, but I just don't think in Hockey Ultimate Team specifically, you get a lot of usefulness out of it. What about you?
Yeah, it's an F tier. I think it's nice to have something in the game like that, so I wouldn't completely get rid of it, but it really does serve no purpose. So
okay.
F tier.
F tier. All right, next up we've got In Reverse, and this is I think kind of an interesting one because I think if you're straight up just playing the game normally and like how you would normally play hockey, having the ability to skate with the speed that you have backwards with no debuff is pretty important. But I found that, like, for the most part, if you're trying to defend, if you're talking like Division 1 and Division 2 guys that, like, you are pretty adequate at the game, you don't always want to be back skating to defend, but I'm curious to see where you'd put this one.
Again, I put this one in the F tier because to me, it's easier to make a poke check skating stride for stride forwards with someone opposed to being in front of them and poking it. I think that allows yourselves to get your stick more in their skates more often than not, opposed to skating stride for stride with them and just angling them into the boards. So
okay, that's what I kind of had a feeling with too as well. Like, I think that, like, it's a nice ability, but I think as you get higher, you're gonna get burned more often than not with it against, like, the really high end skill players. So I'm stunned that you put it that low, but fair enough. All right, next up we've got It's Tricky. That's a get it out. It isn't easier to do the Michigan. Pointless, I feel like, and it ruined Matthew Tkachuk's X Factor card, even though it makes sense that he has it. Curious to your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, we could get rid of this one. Again, I really don't know too many players that had this ability, and I don't think I saw anyone use this ability all year, so.
Yeah, like, I don't know yet how many times, if you're going for between the leg shots and passes consistently throughout the game, it's a fun one maybe, but even when you did it, if you could do the Michigan easier with it, maybe, but, like, you didn't even get a buff to do that, so yeah, I don't know. This one needs reworking, but. All right, next up is Magnetic, and again, I think this is one that is drastically different between Hockey Ultimate Team and Versus and 1v1. I think as the year went along, as long as you have decent offensive awareness, it makes Magnetic kind of useless, in my opinion, because what it helps with is just receiving passes and not bobbling them, but once you get to, like, 85 and above offensive awareness, you don't really notice that at all, but where are you putting Magnetic?
So for the purpose it's served this year, I'll put it in the C tier. However, I would be perfectly fine if they just said, let's get rid of magnetic and allow players to catch passes.
Oh man, I wish.
So the purpose it served, I'd say C tier. However, I would be perfectly fine if they completely got rid of it and just allowed like even like 70 overalls to catch passes more cleanly.
Dude, you know what would be kind of card where it'd be cool? If like you had like a silver, like a CHL player or something. Let's say Bedard's card this year, right? He has like 90 speed and decent shot, but all of his other stats are awful. And like, so his offensive awareness is really low because he's like a 75 or 78 overall rated player. And he had gold magnetic. Like, that's like the kind of like, I think where it'd be kind of cool. But yeah, like
Absolutely.
it doesn't really track at all anymore. So this is make it snappy. Okay. All right. This one, make it snappy, as well as one of the other shooting ones I've been super down on just because I haven't noticed any huge benefits. It activates on pretty much anything. But I will put make it snappy in the D tier, but you're the pro. Where would you put make it snappy?
So if you notice, I had lots of players who make it snappy on my team,
Okay.
and I got really comfortable using it. I think if used properly, it's in between the B and C tier.
Okay.
I'll say it's C tier because you said D tier. Well, we'll meet in the middle. But no, I found really good usefulness out of it because, you know, sometimes when you don't get the full 1T animation, you'll still get like a half 1T when make it snappy activating, or off a pad shot, puck just releases quicker, or even off a saucer pass is where I noticed it the most effective.
Other than like you scoring with a player that has make it snappy, is there something that you even notice with it though? Like an animation, like close quarters. If you yeah, like you never know, right? Like if it didn't light up, you wouldn't know that if it worked, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But however, anytime you had a player activated with make it snappy and you scored, it felt like make it snappy activated. So.
Okay. I'm curious to see, because I remember at the beginning of the game when we first saw X Factors, I always thought this one's going to break the game. But yeah, it didn't have the same impact I thought it would. But all right, next up, we have no contest, which is exceptional stick tension and strength when going into puck pickups, resulting in more wins when battling for the puck. I think this one became more popular throughout the year. I would actually put this in the A tier. I think that's one of the more important, especially because gold no contest is only 2 ability points. Anything that involves helping you get pickups, because pickups have always been an issue in NHL, I think is just a win. But where would you put it?
I'm going to put it into the A tier solely because, like you said, it's only 2 ability points, which is massive. I use no contest quite a bit near the end of the year just to try to gain an edge on picking up the puck, and which allows me to get more possession time. And at 2 ability points, you really don't gotta change like your other abilities around to like make it work. So I think that's a big thing. So yeah, I agree. I think it's an A tier.
Okay. All right, next up, we've got Off the Rush, and I remember this ability. Kesso, my man, he tested this like a ton, and he can't get it to activate other than like a few steps inside the blue line, and that kind of makes it just like, in my opinion, like pointless. I've had a hard time trying to get it to activate. It doesn't seem like it's consistent. I had it activate on Zdeno Chara when I was testing him out and playing with him, but I can't get it every time. Where would you put? I personally would put it in the D tier, maybe even F tier, just because it's not consistent. And if you have an ability that isn't consistent, I feel like that's just not something you can trust. But where would you put Off the Rush?
I agree with you. I think it's an F tier. Yeah, no, anything you can't physically control when you don't activate it, for me it's always going to be low on the list. I like having that full control. So yeah, because of the underlying inconsistencies with the synergy, or with the
cost is a little bit higher too. This one I feel like has the potential to be amazing if you literally got a bonus while in stride. Like if you, as long as you were skating and took a slap shot, like I remember the goal in NHL 21 where if you took a slap shot short side of the face-off dot off the rush, it would go in. I feel like that would be, and like, you know, with Off the Rush, I feel like that's where it looked like that might help with, but it just, it wasn't consistent at all.
Yeah, no, this is is one that could be like a B tier,
Yeah.
net tier in the game, but
Yeah.
but for now it's an F tier.
All right, next is 1T, and I've been pretty, depending on the type of player, I think, or the position, is where this goes higher or lower on the list. So I honestly think for defensemen, specifically left-handed defensemen, I think Gold 1T is one of the best abilities you can have, because I think D2D one-timers just, they weren't as automatic this year, throughout the year, but left-handed defensemen with Gold 1T seem to be able to score quite consistently. But I think for forwards, the cost is so high, and it's kind of like Big Tipper. You have to get your player into position to take that one-timer, and obviously they're just not on the ice as much as your defenseman, whereas everyone plays collapsing protect net, and defensemen are just always open for 1Ts. So that's where. So I would say for a defenseman, it's A tier. For a forward, because of the cost, it's C tier. I think forward it's B tier, but I think because of the cost tier. So where would you place Gold 1T?
I'd place Gold 1T in A tier.
For forwards and defensemen?
For forwards and defensemen.
Okay.
For defensemen it's S tier. For forwards I have it at B tier.
Okay.
Again, it's one of those synergies that allows you to get some crazy animations.
Yeah, like you hear it. It's like at a gunshot. Yeah.
You hear it, and I noticed when I had players activated with gold or even silver 1T, sometimes the pass would get through, even though I don't think it should, because 1T was already registering.
You think that it ignored an intercept?
I don't know if it's a glitch in the game, but if you go back and watch my first goal against Jost in game 2, where Kucherov activates silver 1T, it looks like his Makar was gonna get it and then stuttered because it had 1T activated.
Fourth he goes. Here's to bring it far side, and he scores. Regs is going to rip one home with Kucherov.
Activate from the point. He can activate from his office right there. You see the silver 1T.
That's interesting.
I don't know if that's a glitch in the game with it or not, but it just felt like any 50-50 with 1T activated, your player was getting the shot off.
Like there's like a bubble, like because it's not a stat based one. It's literally an animation. That's interesting. All right, next up is puck on a string, and I'm curious if this changes depending on the type of player you are, because at the high level, being able to go left and right with the puck really fast is like one of the biggest advantages that I think that top end players have, because they never skate with the puck just straight. I think that it draws penalties. You're able to protect it more. However, the cost, and I didn't see a huge speed ability in doing that left and right. I'm gonna put this in the F tier, but where would you place puck on a string?
I'm gonna place it in the D tier. It's definitely way too much to activate. However, when I did have it activated, I noticed quite a difference in my speed and agility with the puck, as well as my ability to sort of bounce off bumps. And just keep the puck through like stick tension and stuff. So I'll go D tier. I actually think it plays as a C tier, but I think it's way too many ability points to put it in that category.
Next up, we've got Gold Quick Draw. I am going to put Gold Quick Draw. I want to put it in the S tier, but I'm going to put it in the A tier because obviously it can only be used on your centerman. But the advantage it gives you when you have it on your centerman, I think, is just an extremely big advantage. But because it's only in your zone, things like that, that's what holds it out of the S tier for me. Where would you put Quick Draw?
I think A tier is an appropriate spot. Again, it didn't cost too many of your ability points. It basically gave you any 50-50 draw if you had it activated and your opponent didn't. So making sure you had at least two centermen on your team with gold quick draw for like penalty kills or just any defensive zone draw was massive. I think A tier is inappropriate.
All right, next up, we've got Gold Quick Pick, and a lot like Born Leader, I think this one gets less and less useful as the season goes along. I think at launch of the game early on, it's an S tier because defensive awareness is not at 99, and the ability to add like a quick animation to close your skates, intercept passes is obviously huge. But once every defenseman has 99 defensive awareness, and defensive awareness is usually one of the ones they just jack up to get defensemen up higher overall rating, so it's usually really high anyways. It just becomes less and less useful. But we'll say at the beginning of the year, let's say, because again, this is obviously going into NHL 23. Where would you put Quick Pick?
At the start of the year, I think it was a B tier synergy. Yeah, no, some of the pickups you were able to get just with your players not even looking at the puck were
Yeah.
really annoying to play against, but you also loved it when you got it for yourself.
Yeah.
And again, I don't think it was too many ability points to activate.
No.
I think it was an appropriate number. And yeah, no, like you said, the purpose it serves when your guys only have like 80 to 90 defensive awareness, somewhere in that range,
Yeah.
you really notice it. So
Yep. All right, next up, we've got Seeing Eye. And at launch of the game, when it first got announced what Seeing Eye does, which is exceptional power and accuracy on shots when the goalie is screened. A screened goalie's reaction time is also greatly reduced when shooting this ability. I thought it would be kind of overpowered, especially obviously on defensemen. I didn't notice it a lot, and maybe it's because everyone runs behind the net, so there's only one player really out in front screening the goaltender. I would put this because of the cost at 8 ability points. I'd honestly put this in the D tier. Where would you put Seeing Eye?
I'd put Cena in the F tier.
Okay.
I think it was the third option to run on your defenseman because it wasn't really a synergy you'd run on a forward.
Yep.
Because it's rare when your forward's shooting with a screen.
Yep.
And again, like you said, using 8 ability points, no, it wasn't worth it. I'll take gold 1T on a defenseman any day.
Yep. All right, next up, we've got Send It. This is an F tier for me, and the reason why it's an F tier is because I shoot it up off the boards. I think that is a better breakout than trying to just do the traditional pass, and it doesn't activate when you shoot it out. So I didn't see a lot of usefulness out of it. Where would you put Send It?
We could get rid of this one.
Straight up get rid of it, eh? Get it out.
If you're throwing blind passes through the middle of the ice, you don't deserve to be rewarded, in my opinion. Yeah, no. When I imagine a breakout, I think it should require a couple touch passes and always one using the boards for the most part, unless your opponent's really overcompensating for taking away the boards.
Yeah.
I think Send It was sort of just like a pray and hopefully get a bailout if you're running it. So yeah. I don't think it served the purpose.
Okay, I agree. All right, this is another one, like, make it snappy for me. It's a Schneip that is hard to quantify because there's no animation that actually gives you an example of it actually activating. It's phenomenal skill to settle pucks with exceptional wrist shot and power accuracy off of settled pucks, which is just, it sounds super specific. I would put it right in the C tier, would make it snappy. Where would you put Schneip?
I'd put Schneip in the B tier.
Okay.
I noticed my chances of scoring while Schneip was activated in between the circles went up tenfold, especially on any far side shot. Yeah, no, I really do think it sort of kept the goalie frozen on shots. So I don't think I didn't ever notice an animation you got as the shooter, but I did notice like inconsistent tendencies with the goalies facing when Schneip was activated. So
okay. All right, next is one of the actual more fun abilities in the game in Shock and Awe, because I think it's a lot like 1T, where if you pulled off a toe drag and fired it, it was a laser beam, but the cost was high, and it's very specific and kind of difficult. If you're playing anyone that kind of just paid attention for it, even loosely, it was very hard to get a toe drag into a wrist shot that actually worked. But when it worked, it was sick. The fun factor keeps it out of an F tier for me. I will say D tier, but it just did not have a lot of usefulness in as you got higher and higher in the rival.
Yeah, like you said, usefulness, it's a get it out tier, but because how fun it is to use and try to pull off that shot animation, because it does look really cool, I think D tier is an appropriate spot.
All right, next is one I think they added as the year went along called Shrug It Off. It significantly reduces energy lost when hit, and the player is much less likely to suffer winded get-ups. This is a get it out for me. Maybe in offline to make like a sim more realistic or something. Very rarely do I notice getting hit and then just being not unable to keep skating like you normally would. So it's just doesn't serve much of a purpose for me. Do you agree?
Yeah, we could get rid of that one. I don't think I saw a single person use this all year. So
yeah. All right, now we got Gold Shutdown, which was like it was controversial throughout, as everyone had Gold Shutdown defensemen, and I think the cost was just so significantly low. I think it was only 2 or 4, maybe. I can't remember now because it's been so long, to get this activated. And the ability to pocheck quickly, accurately, is obviously probably one of, if not the biggest defensive, things that you can do in the game, which is obviously very frustrating. But as the year went along, same kind of situation. Once the pocheck, stick checking defensive rating went up, I think shutdown got less and less useful, because stick checking is the stat that improves accuracy and stick check. I don't think there was ever an animation strictly tied to shutdown. I will say it's a B tier ability. Even it's 6 ability points. I kind of want to put it in the A tier. This is, again, one I think that as the year goes along, it gets less and less useful. So I will still say, I'll say B tier.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say B tier as well. It's served its purpose very well. At one point, it was an S tier synergy because.
Do you think it cost way too little?
It costed way too little for how effective it was. Come the end of the year, it sort of balanced itself out. But because how good it was to start, I think that's why it's not a C tier, it's a B tier.
Yep. All right, next we've got Spinorama. I thought this one might have a purpose because spinning in this game, like full spins, Aves is really good at. Junior Pens loves it too. Passing out of a spin was like a really nice way to get an open 1T kind of situation this year. But I did not notice this any different from a player that had Spinorama and that didn't. I will say it is a F tier or get it out. I just did not notice anything with it. I think that it could have a purpose, but I didn't notice it. I'll say F tier.
I'll say F tier solely because I actually got a couple sick plays with Spinorama. Whether or not it was because of the synergy, I really don't know. Again, it's sort of just one of those gimmicky ones that you get to throw in the game and have a little bit of fun with. So
like
F tier.
I think another thing is to have gold Spinorama on. There's like 15 other abilities I would rather have gold on a player.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, now we've got Stick 'em Up, which was kind of a forgotten one because of how good Shutdown was at the beginning of the year. But Stick 'em Up, phenomenal defensive stick speed, exceptional accuracy when pochecking against momentum or at speed, and greatly reduces the chance of a penalty. Honestly, I think this is close to being an A tier because it's only 4 ability points to activate. But where would you put Stick 'em Up?
Stick 'em Up is an S tier synergy in my opinion.
Okay.
It allowed a mid 85 overall defenseman to play like a low 90 overall defenseman. I think the significance was that big.
Okay.
It's extremely rare you take a penalty with Stick 'em Up, and just spamming the pocheck is already so good to utilize. Having like a penalty free button.
Yeah.
Because of Stick 'em Up was incredible. And we saw if you put like gold Stick 'em Up on like a Victor Hedman, good luck getting around that. It's a magic wand at that point. So because of that, I think Stick 'em Up's an S tier.
Okay. All right, now we've got Tape to Tape, and I was pretty hard on Tape to Tape throughout the year because I don't auto sauce. I manual sauce. So giving the ability to auto sauce, we saw that in NHL 21, it was kind of overpowered and broken. But because I don't rely on it, and I think that maybe the lower division players might take way more advantage of Tape to Tape than someone that's in the higher divisions. But I would honestly have it in the C tier. Where would you put Tape to Tape?
I'd put it in the C tier, and I told this story on the podcast, the gap year. Me and Gren found out 20 minutes before we were going into our semifinal games that Tape to Tape activates off pad shots.
Off
rebounds. So if you shoot it for the far low pad, Tape to Tape will activate because it's like a shot pass.
Oh man.
So similar to Saucer. So because of that extra ability that it adds, I think it's a C tier.
Okay. All right. Did not know that. Okay. All right. Next up, we've got Third Eye. In my opinion, this one is a D tier, even an F tier. I just don't think that it really helps out with anything. It's a very unique ability that does not very, very specific. No, it could go in the F tier. You saw it activate every once in a while, but it really didn't influence an outcome of a game ever. It was sort of just there if you wanted to run it, if you had extra ability points to activate it. So F tier. Okay. All right, next we've got Thunderclap, which is exceptional power and accuracy when taking slap shots from the point. This doesn't activate on 1Ts, does it? On one-timers?
No, no.
That's like been the issue with it because it's 6 points. I honestly have it in the D tier because just straight slap shots from the point, I don't think you're hoping and praying if you're doing that. If you're not setting up one-timers and you're just taking a slap shot from the point, you're just hoping that it gets through. And that's a more than likely a loss of possession. So I don't think that it is. If activated on one-timers, then okay. But just because it only is slap shots, then I down low D tier.
Yeah, I think there's even an argument to be made for it in the F tier. However, it did influence your shot power quite a bit on it. But again, it wasn't one I was spending my ability points on, so it was sort of just there. So D tier is a fair spot for it.
Perfect. All right, next up, we've got Total Eclipse, and at the beginning of the year, I thought this had potential to be huge, much like Big Tipper, but advanced skill at screening the goalie and obstructing their view. When screening with this player, the goalie's reaction time is reduced. Again, I think it's very difficult to actually get the player that has it. Like, on centerman would be the only justification, I guess, but even I remember Trevor Linden's leaders card came out, and I thought that, like, it had that and I believe Big Tipper on it, and it just did not have an impact at all, and I didn't notice it ever. It's very situational. I honestly have this one in the F tier.
Yeah, F tier is appropriate for it. Again, I think screening the goalie is a big part of hockey, where it makes sense to have some X factor in the game that resembles it. But like you said, you really can't position your guy to go where you need him to go for it to activate, and because of that, to me, it doesn't really serve a purpose. So F tier.
All right, next up is Truculence, and I think that I want to bring something up specifically about this, because when everyone thinks about Truculence, they think about like the big hits, like the ability to absolutely crush people. I think that is like the secondary aspect of it, because it's the ability to bump anyone off the puck, essentially, that I think gives it its huge ability, and you know, really the big advantage of it. So the full definition of it is exceptional stability and assist on shoulder checks, and it greatly increases the chance of knocking over the opponent and sapping their energy. The hits is one thing, but I think the ability, the stability, and assist on shoulder checks, honestly, for the 6 points, I have it in the S tier. Where would you have Truculent?
I was gonna say A tier, but I think it could go in the S tier. It is extremely useful, and it's one of the most fun synergies to use, just blowing people up.
Yeah.
But even from a competitive standpoint, just like your ability to like absolutely manhandle your opponent in 50-50 scenarios was such an advantage, both using it as a forward or a defenseman. So and for the amount of ability points it took to use it, I think it was an S tier synergy.
I agree. Next up is Unstoppable Force, and this one, I think, I honestly didn't notice it on some players as much as others, but it's the advanced strength with the puck and an increased ability to hold onto the puck when off balance. Like, it costs 8, which is quite a bit. I think that this helps smaller players more than bigger players, but I will put this in the A tier. I think that as the game went along and less abilities impacted the game, because, you know, obviously once everything hits 99, like they're just, some of these abilities just are kind of useless. I put Unstoppable Force in the A tier.
I'm gonna put in the A tier too. Come the end of the Hut year, it was my most used synergy. I used it every scenario possible. I just felt it was impossible to get myself off the puck because of it. And it's one of those things that felt like it was activating even if your guy was absolutely tired, like no energy left. He was still able to hold and corral the puck. So it served purpose 100% of the game whenever you had the pucks, and because of that, it should be in the A tier.
Okay. All right, lastly, we've got Yoink, and I'm not going to lie, this is F tier or get it out ability for me. I didn't notice it. Stick checking, you would always take a penalty with it in this year. It wasn't like past years where you could kind of get away with doing it unless you legitimately got all of the stick. You just took a penalty. I didn't notice it, and I think that there's so many other abilities I would rather have than this on forwards. I have this one in the F tier. Where do you put Yoink?
I have it in Get It Out.
Okay.
Just to sort of even up the board too, make it a
Oh,
little
nice
bit
and
more
clear. Yeah, yeah.
nice and clean. But yeah, no. Like you said, it really didn't serve a purpose. If anything, it caused you to take more penalties
Yeah.
because you thought you could get away with stuff when in reality you really couldn't. Yeah. I don't think it was too many ability points. However, it really was just a complete waste of ability points. So yeah.
I agree on that one. All right, buddy. Well, that I believe is it. I'm sure maybe we missed one, but I don't think so. This is the tier list from the #1 player. I mean, almost in the world. One of the top 2, and I think that we will find out. Maybe spoiler alert. Hopefully we will find out between you and Eki who is the true #1. But as it stands, the #1 North American NHL 22 player. This is the definitive tier list for all of the abilities, guys. Well, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to help me make the definitive X Factor tier list. And, well, good luck in NHL 23, buddy.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
No problem, buddy. So, guys, I hope this helps make some of your decisions a little bit easier when it comes to zone abilities and superstar abilities. I still think at the end of the day, you always want to try one out each for your own individual play style because everyone's experience might be a little bit different. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one.